Oh, the places you'll go if you have a PC. To Xbox to PlayStation, not Nintendo. That's a me and you on our Switches. That's the only place you can play it. Today I want to discuss with you the future of Nintendo and should their games remain exclusive despite the industry moving away from exclusives. I'd love to know your feedback in the comments down below, what you think about this. Is there a world where you want to see Nintendo first-party games on your PC, on Steam, on some sort of Nintendo hybrid downloader launcher thing? Let me know in the comments down below. What's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. I am a huge defendant of console exclusives. I love them. It has been the reason I purchased systems since I was very young. I remember sitting in the bedroom when I was sick, when I was young, and I was looking through magazines to decide if I was going to get an Xbox. And I was circling the games in the launch window that I would want to play that I could only play on Xbox. And that led me to not get an Xbox. I eventually did get one, but it was the exclusives that helped dictate my purchases. And now I have, one of everything. I have a PS5, I have an Xbox Series X, and I have a Switch, and so I can play everything. But that's partially because this is what I do for my whole life, and I've been on YouTube for 14 years. I understand that having every console is an extreme luxury and not something that everyone can easily do. And I think this factors in both sides of the equation. One, I love exclusives because I do have access to everything. But two, because I have access to everything, I think I appreciate exclusives even more. In my mind, exclusives help dictate and design, honestly, the console that you have in front of you. Rather than it just being a graphics cards in a box, it's a system. And it seems like PlayStation and Xbox are moving more towards a graphics card in a box that can connect to your TV than a true piece of hardware, a system, a gaming console like Nintendo has opted to create. Now, we see Sony moving aggressively towards the PC space, bringing Horizon Forbidden Dawn, they're bringing Ghost of Tsushima, they're bringing The Last of Us, they're bringing all these games to PC, and there's a world where every one of their major releases makes its way and migrates over to Steam as well. Right now there's a big delay, but eventually, and soon enough, if the player counts hold up, there probably will be a much smaller delay. Maybe a 6-month exclusive period, maybe a 3-month, maybe eventually day and date. Xbox has already integrated that into their ecosystem. You can use Games Pass on your PC, you can use it on your Xbox. They don't really care. They're trying to let you play things wherever you want to play them. And let's be clear, there still are games that Sony has that are on PlayStation and PC, and then Xbox has on Xbox and PC. But Nintendo remains the holdout that has games on Nintendo Switch. That's it. And I know a lot of people are pushing against exclusivity and saying it would be great if all these games were accessible to everyone and could kind of be played or run everywhere. It would make for a better gaming industry. I believe that to not be so true. I have no problem with the accessibility of these games. My issue with exclusivity and my preference for it isn't to gatekeep people out of certain titles. It's to ensure that we have multiple platform holders, competitiveness, and the feel of a system that is, like I said, more than just a piece of parts in a box. What differentiates a PlayStation 5 from a PC over time if all the games can be played on both? Not much. And with the advent of handheld PCs, things like the ROG Ally, the Lenovo Go, the Steam Deck, we're seeing even more of a way to experience these games not on any set console, but in a boundaryless industry change, in a way where you could play however you want to play. That sounds peachy, that sounds great, but it dilutes what the console means. And if you believe in sort of the old Dennis Dyack one console future, it helps us move in that direction, or at least in a direction where the console does not matter. I think there will always be multiple options, but in the same way that you can get a Steam Deck, a ROG Ally, or a Lenovo Go, and they all kind of do the same thing with their own twist, do we want a world where Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo just have different boxes and your preference lies on if you like a controller, you want more battery life, it's cheaper, and has nothing to do with the games themselves? I would argue from a Nintendo standpoint, this is the worst case scenario. I know a lot of people believe that if these games expanded to other platforms, PC, etc., it would only boost Nintendo's status. They're already labeled as the richest company in Japan. They sell an extreme amount of their software and a very heavy amount of their hardware as well. This would just bring them more money. But I argue that this would instead dilute Nintendo and maybe make their one golden ace far less exciting and impressive. I think Mario, Zelda, Splatoon, Xenoblade are all phenomenal games on the Switch. And I think they would be phenomenal games on a PC, on an Xbox, on a PlayStation. I don't think the review score changes no matter where they are, as it shouldn't. But we know that Nintendo, they have their exclusive IP, and that is what keeps them going. We know that they don't prioritize hardware. We know that they don't prioritize power. They don't have cutting-edge graphics, but what they do have is the best exclusives in the world. Take that away from them, and what do they got? Take that away from them, and how likely are you to buy anything that Nintendo makes? Like, be honest with yourself. Even if you're a hardcore Nintendo fan, if you can play the next Animal Crossing, the next Mario Kart, and the next Zelda on your PC, what is the reason to have a Switch? Especially with the introduction of all these handheld PCs that in some cases are pretty affordable, and in some cases offer notably more power than what the Switch can produce, and in all cases allow for more games to be played than the Switch. Because if Nintendo games go elsewhere, does that mean that then Nintendo is going to instantly boost their hardware profile so that they can take in all games as well? Or is Nintendo going to still try to be a family-friendly company with a cheaper point of entry and less accessibility to other games? I think it has to be the latter. They will still maintain their family focus, and they will not have the greatest power of any console. They will not have even a comparable amazing power of other consoles. They will instead be in a position where they are delivering what they do now, but without their exclusives and maybe with more aggressiveness in the third-party space. I think losing the exclusives for Nintendo, even to PC, hurts their console business in a pretty significant way. And on the other side of the coin, I feel like it does devalue the experiences that Nintendo has. Maybe this is just backwards thinking from a long-term, lifelong, crazy Nintendo fan who has Miyamoto drawings in the background of his videos, but the appreciation we have for the Nintendo games is because they stand out so amazingly on their platform. I'm not taking away anything from the quality of the games, but I feel like, again, maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like introducing a PC base, people will just like crap on the graphics. They will say like, oh, this isn't as fleshed out as something with a bigger, better story. I don't really know that Nintendo games will thrive on PC. And maybe they would. Maybe I'm underestimating people's appreciation for Mario and Zelda. Obviously, they sell oodles and oodles on Nintendo platforms, but that's a baked-in Nintendo audience. If you introduce these games to other audiences who aren't on board with a Nintendo console, does it in some way like change the perception and change how these games are viewed? And ultimately, maybe that doesn't matter because each person plays the game individually. Their experience is their experience. And if we were all, of sound mind and sound mental health, we wouldn't let others' opinions or others' crazy articles or grabbing headlines affect us. But can you just see where I'm coming from? That like somebody's going to write some article somewhere about how Mario Odyssey looks terrible in comparison to whatever new, big open world game came out, or, this game feels small in contrast to PC giants that take 200 hours to complete. Maybe that's not a good reason to not have your games appear somewhere, but clearly there's enough reasons that Nintendo has not explored it. And I do think the biggest one is it is their bread and butter. It is what defines them, and it is what makes their console such an alluring proposition. Because if we just get down to numbers and benchmarks, what is Nintendo? Nintendo is the worst platform holder with the worst console, with the worst future proofing and the worst look ahead. They've got the worst in those categories. If consoles just become boxes with parts, Nintendo loses so much, in my opinion. So while it would be great to have everybody play every game everywhere and not have to have any platform, if you want platforms to continue to exist as separate platforms, I think you need to have exclusives. And I'm really looking forward to Nintendo anchoring their games to their console for another generation. Maybe 10, 15 years down the line, things have changed to a point where Nintendo does consider bridging to PC or other platforms. But as of right now, I don't think that's even on their radar. I don't think they're even considering or looking at Sony and Microsoft and the gains they've made from other platforms. I think they're saying, hey, try and sell 140 million of your console and then we'll talk. Try and sell 50 million of your kart racing game and then we'll talk. And obviously some titles do expand beyond the 50 million mark, but Nintendo should be able to get many of those on the Switch too. And that kind of leads into my final point, which is exclusives plus accessibility to third parties makes the Switch 2 the best console on the market. If it truly is able to hold many more third-party games day and date without too much of a sacrifice because of power, we're looking at the best investment on the market. If it can play the Assassin's Creeds and the Far Cries, if it can play the GTAs, if it can play all those tentpole top games, Call of Duty, Madden, etc., and the Nintendo stuff, now they are an even better proposition than ever before. I don't know why they would give up on that. I don't know why they would get rid of that. They've proven that their exclusives alone are enough to continue this company and continue thriving and continue succeeding for decades. PlayStation and Xbox obviously have continued to persist. PlayStation longer than Xbox, and PlayStation does have its share of exclusives, but not like Nintendo. Nintendo could literally erase all third-party and indie games and still sell a box. I don't know that anybody else could do that. So when it comes to Nintendo exclusives being elsewhere, I say don't do it. I think it completely changes the brand. I think it completely changes what a Nintendo console is, and I think it contributes to the end of consoles. And frankly, as a now old gamer of 34 years old, I don't want consoles to end. I want distinct different boxes that are fun to pick and choose, that are fun to look at and decide, that are fun to compare and contrast. And we don't need console wars, but choice is good. And having different things that do different things and offer a slightly different kind of thing for different experiences, and having the fun of like, wow, I get to go over to my friend's house and try out their experience that they prefer, and then at my house I have the experience I prefer. Or if you're lucky, you get to have 2 consoles or 3 consoles. But I don't want a situation where basically any console is any console. It just comes down to the specs. I think that's really boring, and I think that dilutes what console gaming has been for the last 30-some, 40-some years. So let me know your take in the comments down below. I know it can be kind of a dicey subject. I hope I didn't step on anybody's toes. I do think games should be accessible. I do think games in a perfect world are everywhere. But I do think it's in Nintendo's best interest to keep their things exclusive. So let me know your take in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Oh, I'll say before we go that you don't get Nintendo's crazy, quirky ideas without a system. So remember that as well. Things are going to be much more like a future or a past where we go back 15 years and erase Nintendo consoles and they just make their games as a third party. We miss out on so many different ideas like the Switch. So there is a definite benefit to having console manufacturers compete against each other in more than just power, and to know that their system itself has value and is not just another option in a generic pool. Anyways, that's all for now. I could talk for hours, but in the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. Love you lots. SwitchForce out.